Welcome to episode 93 of the Necronama.com.
Hello, I want to play a game. The podcast before you will look at the social commentary in the 2004 film Saw. All you have to do is listen for the next 1 hour and 48 minutes. If you do that, you will find a new appreciation for life.
I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now, and I just escaped a 4-year torture session.
And I am Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this podcast. And yeah, James, you're only like 396 years behind me, so catch up, buddy.
You win this round. I'll just fully admit it. All right. So joining us today against his better judgment is William Sterling. William, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So do you want to tell our listeners a bit about yourself?
I am a self-published horror author. I've got 2 books that I published last year in the middle of a pandemic for who knows what reason. And just, yeah, been a huge fan of horror my entire life, a big fan of this movie we're about to talk about, and a huge fan of the podcast. So I'm just thrilled to be here.
And we love all of those things.
Yes.
Tell me about writing during the pandemic, because I'm doing it too. And I feel like people are either making a lot of stuff during the pandemic or like way less. But nobody seems to be like on the same trajectory they were going in. So like, where do you fall on that? And how has writing during the pandemic been for you?
Okay. So it's been complicated because not only am I juggling the pandemic, I've got a wonderful, psychotic 1-year-old child now who was born right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh
so
my.
honestly, how the pandemic is affecting me, like, I have no clue. Like, there is no difference between night and day anymore. It's just a ongoing screaming contest with a tiny toddler.
That sounds similar to that torture session I was talking about. But no, we've been there. I definitely understand that. So, man, good answer. That totally threw me off. I like it.
I was just wondering if the baby had access to Twitter or not.
He doesn't. I keep putting him on there against my better judgment. And he keeps trying to post stuff, mostly like gumming the keyboard until some like Cthulian script comes out. But I've managed to snatch it back away from him before he actually hits send. So
Well, I'm sure it would have been better than anything that previous tweeters, twits, whatever you want to call them, had put out before getting kicked off of Twitter.
Oh, man.
yeah, he never successfully posted Kofifi. So he tried. He tried so hard.
So tell me about your 2 books.
I've got 2 books out. They're called Through Frozen Veins and then Through Withered Roots. Through Frozen Veins is kind of a claustrophobic, stuck in a snowstorm with people that you don't know and evil things that you don't know type of a horror story, which putting that out right at the beginning of the pandemic felt prophetic in some ways, not in good ways. And then Through Withered Roots, I put out, I think in May of last year or something like that. But it's my shot at like a small town horror book. This family's trying to run away from the demons of their past and start a new life. And it's a horror book, so it doesn't go the way that they want it to. But yeah, that's kind of the pitch for both of them in a nutshell.
Nice. Those sound cool. So we started talking a long time ago about doing Saw. Like I know it probably hasn't been a year, but I feel like I've been talking to you about one day doing Saw together for like a full year now. And one of the things I loved about talking to you about it was that we both agree that Saw 3D doesn't exist.
I don't know what you're talking about.
See, exactly. And I want to get your take on the series overall. Like, I'm a diehard Saw fan, right? And like, how was it for you? Like, did you go to every midnight showing, or did you like see them later, or like, how important was Saw to you while it was coming out?
Oh my gosh. Okay, you just hit the big question for me. So this movie was absolutely formative, not just in like my status as a horror fan, but in my status as a person. I grew up in this very conservative household. Dad was in the military. Mom was an army wife, moving all over the place all the time. They have no appreciation for the horror genre. So growing up, I was always stuck like sneaking horror movies at midnight on the TV in my room. Like, I remember watching Halloween for the first time, and it was like 2 a.m, and God knows what channel was playing it. But just being taken away by that movie. But Saw was my first big open rebellion against my parents. I was in middle school. I knew that I wanted to be a creative when I grew up. And while I was in middle school, I thought that would look like being a movie director, and horror movies especially. And my middle school teacher gave us this project where we were supposed to look at some of the indie film festivals that were going on and just find a movie that was interesting to us and kind of do some research on how they were making it and all of the rest of that stuff. And that was the year that Saw came out, I think at Sundance, right? I think at Sundance.
Probably.
Yeah, but I was looking into it, and there were all these reports of this movie at Sundance, just like making people faint in the middle of the theater and rush out of the room. Yes, that's perfect, because that's exactly what a middle school kid's looking for, right? This hyper gory, terrifying thing. So I latched onto it while I was at Sundance, and I wrote this whole report on it. And I was watching the news when Lionsgate picked it up. Like, I saw that report roll through, and I added that to my report. And they said that they were going to give it a Halloween release. And I like went to my parents, and I was all excited about it. Like, I've got to go see this movie. And they looked at the trailer for 30 seconds. We're like, yeah, no, not a chance in hell we're bringing you to that. So I went through, and I kept fighting them all the way up until Halloween. And they just wouldn't budge on it. And like, don't get me wrong, they're great parents, but this is just not in their wheelhouse. So this was the first time that I like really openly lied to my parents. Like the old bait and switch, bring me to the movies to see this movie, and then I'm gonna sneak into Saw while you're not looking. And it was everything I had hoped it would be and more. Are we jumping into spoiler territory yet?
Yeah, go ahead.
Spoil away.
Okay. That scene at the end where Saw in the middle of the room just stands up. Like, I was in the perfect movie theater experience for that, because everyone around me leapt out of their seats at the same time. And this one guy, like 2 seats in front of me, stands up and just starts screaming, "Fuck this! Fuck this," and like runs out of the theater. And it was just like, I have never had another experience like that in the movie theater, except for like maybe Avengers Endgame when Cap gets that hammer back. But it was just me sitting in the Stark Theater with a couple of my friends looking around going, this is it. Like, this is what entertainment's supposed to be for. This is what these movies are supposed to do. This is what like all of these stories are supposed to be about, like drawing this crazed reaction out of people. And I've been so in love with this movie and the franchise ever since. And the franchise falls off, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But this one movie like is like borderline sacred in my mind. Just like for all of that.
Nice. What about you, Don?
I think the first time I saw it was on video. I don't think I saw it at the movie theater. And I think it might have been on DVD. But I know that I saw the second and third in the movie theaters, and I had kind of the same reaction at the end, where as soon as Jigsaw starts getting up, the body starts getting up, you're like, what the fuck? And my first thought was, that is one of the best twists I have seen in a movie in God knows how long, because it's, I think up to that point, one of the really cool twists was the whole thing about Bruce Willis being dead in The Sixth Sense. Yeah. And a couple other movies where or even The Usual Suspects, things like that. But this one, it was like the fucking body's there the whole time. You're assuming he's dead. And Cary Elwes, the doctor, he saws off his own foot to get out. Adam can't go anywhere. And then, that body starts getting up and shocks him to stay in there and shuts the door. And you're like, holy shit, this was one of those things that now it made sense. Like everything made sense, as far as when his assistant makes, or at least the disciple, the first one, makes that comment about, oh, there are rules, and he's doing it to make sure that, he doesn't somehow become a victim of what's going on. And even playing into the subsequent movies, how that works for them. I loved it. Again, I don't know what that other movie was that James was mentioning. I didn't even know they made one like that. But
we're going to talk about why it's good that they made it, but continue.
But by comparison, it's like, it makes all the other ones even better. But you then start paying attention to wordplay and language and all these little cues. Like even in the second movie, when Jigsaw is telling Donnie Wahlberg, I can't remember his name, he tells him, it's like, oh, your son's in a safe place. And
it's my favorite. I love that.
Basically fucking tells him, like, I just need to talk to you for a while. He's in a safe place. Don't worry. And he's in a fucking safe in the same room with him. I mean, it was the masterful twist, the way the game is played. It's more than just a horror film. A gorer film. It is. There's a lot of psychological trauma and horror that's built into this movie, but just great storytelling.
So much, yeah. Like I was reading something the other day that said it's not a horror movie, it's a thriller. And like the lines between those are so blurry, but it plays out like this one room drama on a stage. Mm-hmm. Like you could perform this in a theater and get like 99% of the movie in. Because it's just so well written and so well paced.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you have to worry about maybe Jigsaw doing a musical number at the end.
That'd be kind of great.
I'd be there for it.
Or the doctor doing what is it, My Left Foot?
Oh my. All right, so my turn. Saw is one of the most movies in the entire world to me, to the point that one of the main characters in my novel Fat Camp is named Gordon Stanheight. Dr. Gordon, Adam Stanheight. And that's because Saw influenced me so much. And what's weird about that is I didn't watch Saw until Saw 3 came out. The night that Saw 3 went to DVD, VHS, whatever the hell it was at the time, I had never seen any of them. And I was having a party at my house. Somebody brought all three. Everyone else there had seen Saw. I was the one who hadn't. And they put it in to see my reaction to the twist. And the movie starts and we're watching it. And I was like, so the guy on the floor did it? And everyone got pissed. And I was like, what? And they're like, how do you know that? And I'm like, they didn't show him die. He died off screen. He can't be dead. This is a movie about gore. He's not dead. And everyone was so mad at me. And I tell you this story because to this day, when he fucking stands up, I get chills every fucking time I see it. I've seen this movie probably fourth most out of everything I've seen in my life. Shawshank, Wizard of Oz are above it for sure. So I'll say third or fourth most out of anything I've ever seen. And when I rewatched it for this podcast, I still got chills watching him stand up. That's how fucking good this twist is. This twist is so good that I knew it was coming, and it still kills me now. Don knows I don't rewatch shit. I've said this a couple times. I said it during our Mortuary Collection episode. I watched Mortuary Collection back to back, and I never fucking do that. I watched all three Saws for 3 days straight. That's how loved these fucking movies. Saw 4 came out. I was there for the midnight showing. Saw 5, midnight showing. Met my next girlfriend. Great movie. Saw 6 came out. I was there for the midnight. Saw 3D came out. I was there for the midnight. And it was the most disappointing movie I've ever seen. And no, it's not true. It's the most disappointing Saw movie, though. Jigsaw came out, midnight showing. It was all right. But the reason I'm glad they made Saw 3D, and you guys can feel free to disagree with me, I was that guy that was on every fucking forum talking theories. I was the guy that kept notes from all 6 movies. I was the guy who pieced shit together and knew how this had to end. And I have what I consider to be a great pitch for if we ever want to reboot Saw 7. So anybody out there, feel free to hit me up. But I'm going to give you the pitch in a minute. But Saw 3D was so bad that it's good to me because nothing could have lived up to what I wanted that night. And I don't have to look at an okay movie and feel like an asshole for not liking it, because what they gave me was so bad that no one could have liked it. And that's why I'm glad they made Saw 3D. So really fast, here's my pitch. If you haven't watched the others, skip ahead 1 minute in this show for spoilers. My pitch for Saw 7, Jill and Hoffman in the original bathroom with 1 hour to confess everything they did and how everything worked. And the twist at the end, a hooded figure limps into the room, pulls down his hood, and Dr. Gordon tells one of them they passed and leaves the other one there. There you go.
I like that.
I'd watch it.
It's a hell of a lot better than Saw 3D.
So much.
But my point is, these movies are also sacred to me. And I will tell you straight out, I'm one of the only people that loves Saw 5. Saw 5 is one of my favorite movies. I can't say that about any other franchise. The 5th in a series. But you also have to look at it as these movies don't stand on their own. You can't go into Saw 5 having not seen anything and expect it to work. It's another chapter in the story. And I feel like that gets missed a lot. It's, like you look at like the difference between 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And I feel like people expect Saw 2 to be a comprehensive story, and it mostly is. Saw 3 really gets into the this is a chapter kind of thing. Saw 4 really fucks with you into this is a chapter. And after that point, 3 to 4 is a huge breaking point to me. I think after that point, you can't take them as what they are on their own. You have to view everything together.
Right.
With that said, I totally get why people don't like these movies. It's one of those things you either love or hate. I have a lot of movies like that. And I'm just thankful that I have this because I think I needed these movies.
And I think that's so fascinating that you see them as completely interconnected, because when I'm looking back, or when I was looking back at all the interviews with the directors, it was them talking about how they had to make these movies so piecemeal. Like they knew that they had a Halloween release for this year. They had to make the movie by Halloween and get it ready by Halloween. Mm-hmm. But they would have no clue if they were going to get renewed for Saw 6 or Saw 7. So all of them have to be a little bit self-sealing, but then also leave room for, okay, maybe we keep going with the storyline. So to hear you say that to you, at least they feel like they all have to be cohesive. Like that's such a testament to how well the directors did their jobs.
And directors is key. Like, it's not like Lee Wan-el and James Wan made each of these. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not even like Darren Lynn Bousman got say in the ones after he was there, you know? So yeah, I do find it fascinating. I would argue that you could cut off at Saw 5 and be a lot happier in life.
Yes. I think that is where I draw the line too. As long as you don't go near that abysmal excuse for a 3D movie.
Or the overly preachy anti-insurance commercial that is Saw 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you, Don? Have you seen all of them, or?
I've seen all except for 3D. And I wanted to see 3D, and now, after speaking to you for years, I'm glad that I never watched it. I'm glad that I never convinced my girlfriend at the time to go see it. Or was I married then? I can't remember. Anyway.
Either way, she was your girlfriend. Oh.
Yeah, whatever. Because I saw the second one in the movie theater. I saw the third one in the movie theater. I was actually at one of the, military movie theaters. And I saw it with a friend of mine, Madison. We went to go see it, and we were just like 2 out of like 4 people that were in the movie theater to watch it, and just cracking up and trying to figure out exactly what the hell was going on. But yeah, I saw all of them except for 3D and the first one. I'm sorry, I saw all of them except for 3D. I saw all of them except for 3D and the first one in the movie theater. The first one I saw on video, and like I said, it holds up. I haven't seen 3 in a while, but I think for me, because I can't remember 4 that well, for me it would have to be those first 3 movies as far as making that really cool loop back to the second film, or at least a continuation from the second film, where one officer is warned, he's like, oh, you should, you're always busting through doors, but you never take the time to think about what's on the other side, or however he phrased it. Because the one time he busts through the door, ends up getting somebody else, Donnie Wahlberg, smashed by 2 big blocks of ice, was it?
What a great kill.
Yeah. Oh, it was awesome. And the thing is, you weren't expecting it, because again, you're thinking, well, he's got to be fucking dead. He's not in this movie so far. And then when he finally shows up, you're like, that was a really cool connection to the second film. And of course, there were cool connections to the first film. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed them. Like I said, some things about the movies don't hold up, but all in all, the movies age well. So, I mean, it's one of those film series I would have no problem recommending to anybody, unless they're not a big gore person. But even now, the gore that's in these movies is comical, because at the time they were shocking. They were very grotesque. And as William was saying, you had the reports of people like fainting during the movie or walking out, or any number of things that definitely demonstrated that they were somewhat disgusted with the film or what was, appearing on screen. And you got a couple other movies like that around that same time. You had Hostel and Hostel 2. So you had a few gorer movies. But yeah, it was a great time for these movies to come out. I don't know how well they will work now, because I think so many people might be desensitized to it.
All right, William, I have one last question about the series as a whole.
Okay.
How did you feel when you finally got to see a reverse bear trap?
So almost like sad. Like, it was one of those things, like they had been teasing it for so long that it was just like that white whale that the movie had seemed to be chasing through all the series. Like, okay, they're never actually going to do the reverse bear trap. There it is on the mannequin, and there it is on Amanda, and this is just that thing that we'll never get to see. And then it happens, and it's so quick. It's like, oh, that's gone now. That's off the table. What do I look forward to now? That's a really gross thing to look forward to, but
isn't it weird? But like, we all did it. Like, we were all oh, is this the time?
It's like the merman in Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods, yes.
So for me, when it gets used on Hoffman and he half saves it, that was way more terrifying to me.
Oh yeah.
Because he has to live that way, and he has to take it off, and he has to whatever, like, oh my God, that fucked with me way more. When they actually used it completely, I was disappointed. And it wasn't just that it happened. I wanted it to happen. Like, I thought it was great that it happened, but I had gotten so used to the image of the mannequin head just being decimated that I was like, that's all it does? But I guess at the same time, if I had gotten the explosion that I wanted, Hoffman wouldn't have been able to save it. So,
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Make another one?
That's right.
Call it Spiral?
Spiral. And bring back one of the best directors that ever worked on it? Yes. I am disappointed that we didn't get Spiral this past year. It's one of the things I was looking forward to the most. Hopefully we actually get it this year. They dropped a new trailer recently, so that's cool.
Yeah, I'm positive I'm in the minority here, but I really hope it gets delayed one more time so it can just hit that Halloween release date. Like, keep the tradition alive. Like,
I'd be totally fine with that.
And hopefully we can see it in a movie theater.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I don't put too much faith in people to do the right thing, as I've seen for years, but especially I've seen in the past year how, I think if Saw were to come out now, or if it were a real life incident, it would be, him daring someone to wear a mask and say, like, you've got to think of someone other than yourself. Put on this mask. No, it's tyranny. You failed.
Oh man, that's great.
Even the way it's constructed, as far as within the first film with Amanda's character, she's got to dig the key out of the guy's body or out of his stomach and intestines, right? I could imagine somebody not thinking it's real. It's like, I need you to put on your mask. If you put on your mask, you'll save thousands. If you don't, you will be responsible for killing untold numbers of people. Yeah, but you're saying it's 50-50. You know what? I look at the survival rate of the mask in Corona. I don't think this is really worth my time. Meanwhile,
it's
Amanda's
uncomfortable.
Amanda's like cutting through this guy, digging into him while he's still alive to get the key. She's like, no, fuck this reverse bear trap. It's not happening.
I don't know. I almost wonder if people would just like be more vicious about it. Like, oh, I get to rip people up. Cool. But I don't have a lot of faith in humanity, so maybe that's just me.
I want to start a movement to get a mask printed with a reverse bear trap on it.
Oh my god, I want one. Somebody make me one ASAP. Holy shit, that'd be great. I saw a guy with a 3D printed one, like a helmet that he could like take on and off, but it totally looked real. And I was like, wow, I want one of those so badly. I don't know what I'd do with it. Like, just like sit in my house wearing it. I don't know, Yeah, just be my Instagram photos for the next 3 years. There are no
neighbors see you.
Oh, that's true. I would totally wear it outside here. That'd be great. All right, let's jump into the film itself.
Yes.
So, like you said, this holds up really well. And I was actually kind of going in. I haven't seen it in probably 3 years, which is unusual for me. I used to watch it multiple times a year. And this was my first time back. And I was absolutely amazed at how well most of this holds up. And I would argue that the part that doesn't hold up for me is Carrie Elwes' makeup at the end. And I feel like that's holding up just as well as it did the first time I saw it. So maybe overall it holds up. I don't know. So what didn't work for you this time, Don?
It's just kind of the shaking, the shaking the heads and things like kind of what we saw in Jacob's Ladder. Just that very fast, rapid movement of the camera, or when we're going back into the cut scenes or the oh my gosh, I forgot what it's called. But going back and looking at the people who are dying and speculating what happened to them as far as getting it from that vantage point. Because I think it would have been, it was very unsettling to see it, 2004, 2005 when the movie came out. I think it would be more unsettling now if you really drove in like this guy having to crawl through razor wire and all this other stuff, but you weren't distracted by at least some of the shots with the camera, whereas, you were seeing him and seeing the pain that this guy was going through. And I think they really did a good job of that in some of the later films. Like where the guy's inside the furnace, the arsonist in Saw II, he has to go into the furnace and you sit there and you not only get claustrophobic watching him in there, but then just the having to watch this guy and having to watch other people watch this guy burn to death is just fucking tragic. And it's one of those things where I think if they went back and they did reboot, Saw, the first one, I think there might be more time spent on fully driving home the pain and the torture, and making the audience even more comfortable by watching this take place. And like I said, in some of the later films, they really did that well as far as drawing out the pain that people were in. Even when Amanda in the second film is thrown into the needles, your first thought is like, fuck that. And then second, fuck that, because it's just horrific, because there's so many, the glass, the needles puncturing you, whether or not there's an infection or some type, just where the hell did all these needles come from? It gives you that time to process it. Whereas when she is in the reverse bear trap, watching it, I guess probably for the 10th time now, I didn't get that time to really process it as far as the fear that she might have, other than seeing her eyes get wide and then running over to the body to dig out the key. But the story, like I said, it holds up very well. It could be redone right now. It could be redone in 20 years. I mean, you don't need a vast amount of technology to drive this film, because this is a film that can exist with or without cell phones. This is a film that can, of course, you got the camera that's watching them. I mean, you have surveillance, you have all these different things that are available. Plus, you also have the way that human beings interact with each other. So whereas, the detective loses his partner on the case and they claim that, he went crazy, he got kicked off the force because he was too obsessed with his case. You have people like that. I mean, you have people like that in the 50s. You have people like that in the 60s, 70s, early 2000s when this film came out. There are people like that now that, you have a traumatic experience and that forever changes who you are and the circumstances that you were comfortable with.
How has nobody gone in and edited this movie to make it Murtaugh and Riggs instead? I think that'd be fantastic.
God, I was trying to avoid anything related.
Just Tap yelling, "I'm getting too old for this shit." It'd be great.
I was waiting for that while he was doing all of surveillance, where he would have looked off to the pictures and newspaper clippings at one point, looked off into the window and said, "I'm too old for this shit," and just taking a big swig of Jack Daniels or something.
That was really just me trying to get Don to do impressions again.
Strangely enough, last episode I did no impressions of Donald Trump at all, and it totally called for it.
It was Birth of the Nation, right?
Yeah, totally called for it, and I didn't do it.
Missed opportunities.
Damn it.
We had the greatest sheets in the entire world. No one has whiter sheets than us.
Oh my God. So anyway, since you guys have seen the others, I want to know if this bothered you the same way it bothered me. When it opens with the key going down the drain, I can't view Saw 1 by itself when I should. I just preached that you can't look at these movies by themselves, right? And I can't even do it with the first one. My immediate reaction is, that's not a fair game. And I know Amanda fucked it up and everything else, but I'm like, it still bothers me every fucking time. and I don't know. There's part of me that wants to know what Adam would have done if he had the key. He still can't get out. He can just undo his leg. That's it.
Right. You know what I think it comes down to is that false sense of security and false sense of freedom. It's that idea of, like you just posed, he can have the key to unlock himself from that, from the contraption, right? Or from the locks and from his confinement. But all it does is it expands the confinement. So instead of being able to move 3 or 4 feet or however he could go, now you can move 12 feet, 15 feet. It's just like when, if you're in prison and you're in solitary versus you're in general population, or, the different variations that they might have, you're still in prison.
I wonder if it raises the odds that Gordon would have killed him, because if he could get around the room, Gordon becomes more vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
and it automatically negates your equality because he's free to roam and you're not. And I wonder if that would raise the odds that he would take a shot. I don't know. Also, I think it's fucked up that Adam doesn't get a trial here. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say, just like, even with Adam's character and as like obnoxious as he is to Dr. Gordon, like adding in a physical element to that, like if he could go over and just like boot Dr. Gordon in the nose, like he'd take that shot.
Go over and rip the cigarettes away from him. Yeah.
Right.
There's a theory that I read that he was supposed to get loose originally because when they show the little miniature of the bathroom scene, Adam's not in it. And so there's this theory that it's because he can walk around the room, and so he's standing in an area where you can't see him in the miniature. And I find that really fascinating. I don't know that it means anything. I don't know that there's anything to it, but this is the kind of crazy shit we would talk about on these forums and how in depth it was. And that's what I miss about Saw so much.
But with the key, are we definite that it opens Adams and not Dr. Gordon's?
Oh man, that would be great.
Yeah.
Jigsaw or Kramer says the key to that is in that tub. So, I mean, unless he's lying, maybe it opens both.
Right.
You know, it's hard to say. But, it still bothers me that Adams doesn't have a trial. He's just a target. And I know that's because of the revisionist history of knowing everything I know and what the rules are supposed to be. But there are rules. Zepp told us so.
Well, you know, there's just one quote, and this is going back to Adam and his job, but one quote of, you know, the camera always tells the truth. It doesn't know how to lie. And being an historian, I know that's a fucking lie. Like, a camera is going to record an event. It's not going to lie or tell you the truth. You're going to see, without context, what you choose to be the truth. And I hate to make this reference, but Jennifer Lopez actually had a good video. I can't remember what the hell the name of the song was, but it was something with her and Ben Affleck, and they were showing the paparazzi taking pictures of them, you know, as part of this staged music video she was doing. And so she has an eyelash like in her eye, and they take the picture and they print it, and it's, Ben Affleck, you know, it makes J-Lo cry on their vacation. But it's showing the video and it's showing like camera shots at the same time. So she has the eyelash. She comes over and like wipes the eye, you know, gets the eyelash out of her eye and blows in her eye and gives her a kiss. So then there's, they did this, they did this, they did this. And you realize from, you know, the way that paparazzi runs, the way that some media runs, a still image doesn't tell you everything. A still image can allow you to tell the story that you want to tell. So where Adam is, you know, the PI, or I should just say the photographer, or who's trying to catch Dr. Gordon, you know, he already has a bias in what he's supposed to be taking pictures of. Not Dr. Gordon, I don't know, like giving money to a homeless guy, or even being able to capture the conversation that's taking place in the room. Because he even makes that comment. He's like, "Oh yeah, you were in and out of that room pretty quickly." To, you know, make this comment that he must be, you know, a 1 minute man, or just a quick rendezvous or whatever. But the assumption is he's following him because he's off, you know, with his mistress and going and getting some. So I've got to get the evidence. I've got to get the truth. And the truth is whatever you want it to be. The camera just happens to take down whatever you pointed at.
That's a great point. I'd never noticed that line doesn't really tell the truth. What about William? You got anything to add to that?
No, I'm just trying to process all of that through Adam's character here too, because that's a lot of Jigsaw's problem with Adam, is that he does just like leech off of other people in society. And he uses that camera to tell the story that he wants it to tell, like exactly like you're saying. And I had just never really gone down that thought process before.
And that actually really pulls into my complaint that he doesn't really get his own game. He hasn't had his own life, so he doesn't deserve his own game. He leeches off everyone else. He gets to leech off Gordon's game.
Well, that makes sense.
I like that. You may have just solved one of my biggest problems with this film. And somewhere Lee Wanell's like, that's right. That's exactly what we were shooting for.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about like the weird forums that I used to be on that I was talking about a little bit ago. And one of the craziest theories that I ever heard on there, it absolutely doesn't work, by the way, but I loved it in the years before we got answers. There's that whole scene where Dr. Gordon's playing this little piggy with his daughter. Mm-hmm. And you know, like the one that ate roast beef and the one that didn't, people were like, oh, the one that didn't is Amanda because she's a vegan. And this one went to market and they literally show the guy in the pig mask at the market. And this one did this. And people were like trying to decipher if Jigsaw's apprentices lined up with this little piggy. And I think that's fucking hilarious. That it was always one of those theories that entertained me, so I would show it to people. But I love that people like literally spent their time trying to break down whether this worked or not, you know? So I had to share that because it's nuts.
No, I like that. Now I've got to go back and look at some more things related to
that. I wonder if those forums are still around. I'd love to read them.
Well, as long as they weren't on Parler, you're fine.
They probably were. That's where I spent all my time. So, what do you got in your notes that you desperately want to talk about, Don?
Oh, me? I was going to turn it over to William in case he wanted to direct it another way.
Oh well, we could. We can do anything.
Oh, I've kind of got two talking points that I've thought of.
Cool.
One of them, like, super character based with Adam and Gordon, so maybe this is a good segue there.
Yeah, let's do that. Go for it.
I have always kind of gone back and forth over whether or not I love Lee Wanell's performance or like really dislike it in this movie.
Uh-huh.
And I've realized, like, I think this last time watching it, I realized that both of these guys are just straight up method acting without meaning to. So Adam is Lee Wanell, and he is like the more talkative one, the more desperate one, the more like the one who really seems like he's getting to the end of his rope near the end of this. And Gordon is the very like calm, calculated doctor one. And just thinking back about how they filmed this in 18 days, and this movie was written by James Wan and Lee Wanell, and it is their baby, and it is their like this is their passion project. You can feel Adam getting more and more and more desperate throughout the film. And I'm realizing now, like, that was Lee Wanell, like, getting desperate to hit the shot so they could finish the movie. And just like that crazy desperation in his character and the way that he's going through stuff, like, especially near the end, like, really didn't sit right with me the first time around. 'Cause, like, oh, his voice is cracking in this shot. Oh, he's not really delivering this line that great. But it comes across as so genuine.
Right.
Because that's where he is right then. He's like, we got 2 days left to get this shot right. I've got to get this. Ah! And then there's Dr. Gordon on the other side of the room. Carrie Elway. Mm-hmm. Just like, he's a hired actor. He's sitting there trying to figure out what's going on. Just like the doctor sitting there trying to figure out what's going on, like logicking through this thing. Okay, these saws could cut off my foot. I'm not there yet. Let's keep thinking about this. And I just, like, I've grown to really love both of their performances, like, for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess I don't really have a question built in there, but just.
No, yeah. I think that's great because the thing I really noticed on this one is along the same lines, but very in character, not the actors. I really noticed that Dr. Gordon has completely given up when this starts. That he's lost everything in his mind, right? And he's just like, his answers at the beginning are so monotone and so bored. And, well, somebody wants us here, you know, like he just really sounded to me like I fucked up. Now I'm here. This is the end. And I feel like Adam's energy somehow rejuvenated him. Like he starts taking care of Adam in a way. Not exactly, but sort of. And I feel like that gave him a purpose. And then when he gets to talk to Allie, then like things are like, oh my God, this is what's important to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way he says her name the one time that he talks to her always half cracks me up and half like rips my heart out, because I can't imagine speaking to my wife that way, you know, like oh my God, you're alive. And it just, it's so good. But going back to Adam and his desperation, I love his build. Like Adam starts with this snarkiness, but it's anxiety hidden in snark, right?
Yeah.
And he says my favorite line in all however many films, no matter how many we're counting. And he says, my name is very fucking confused. What's your name? I have used that so many times in my life. It's ridiculous, but you know, it's usually to my friends. But anyway, no, it's like, what the fuck's happening to me? And fuck you, because you're either involved or you're here. Like, you tell me what's going on, you know? And it's such an entitled response for somebody in such a weird place. And then it decreases and he starts realizing how fucking serious this is. And then he just completely loses his shit the rest of the film. Mm-hmm. But I had never really paid attention to how they are at the beginning versus how they go throughout. And that's what really spoke to me this time through.
Well, yeah, even at the end, Dr. Gordon is trying to console Adam and let him know, I'm going to get out of here and get us help. Mm-hmm. It's not, I'm getting the fuck out of here, save your own ass. It's, I'm going to get help for you. I'm going to do something. So it wasn't necessarily about just him cutting off his foot. Spoiler alert, cutting off his foot to get back to his wife and daughter and potentially save them. But it was also like, I got to make sure this guy gets out too. And of course, when you watch later films, you realize he didn't. Adam's still in there.
Poor Adam.
I know. But even when
Gordon could have thrown him the saw, but he didn't.
Well, he probably would have damaged some tendons and everything. I'm sure that, you know, Dr. Gordon understood where to cut.
What would you think of that ending if Gordon crawled over and started sawing off Adam's foot? I have to help you. Saw, saw, saw.
You know what? I think that would be even better. I mean, not to say the ending was bad because it wasn't, but I mean, better as far as the shock factor with audiences. Because in movies like this, I always ask, like, what the fuck would you do? You know, what would I do in this same position? I couldn't imagine cutting my own foot off to get out, right? I also couldn't imagine doing it to someone else to get them out. You know, maybe if I were to find myself in that situation, I don't know. But I think within that first hour, I don't know if I would be in Adam's position or even Dr. Gordon's position. I would kind of sit there and think, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, where are we? As opposed to kind of the reaction that Adam has, where it seems a little bit over the top and Dr. Gordon seems a little way too calm. My wife, on the other hand, if she were to be in this room, she'd be pissed off at how dirty it is. She wouldn't even worry. She can watch any gory movie, fucked up thing take place on film. But God forbid there's like a dirty bathroom or a dirty bathtub. She loses her shit. She's like, this is the worst movie ever. I'm like, what are you talking about? This won like 12 Oscars and has won every award. The bathtub was disgusting.
So she's not a Terrifier fan?
I warned her. I was like, oh, if you watch this, you're not going to like it.
But she would know to dig into the toilet tank before reaching into the bowl.
Yeah,
That's
you know
good.
what?
We're going elbows deep.
because she and I watched it, or she watched it with me when I rewatched it, and yeah, she did get a little, she's like, oh God, that's so nasty, because again, it was a dirty toilet. And she and I were just sitting there like, why the fuck wouldn't you look in the tank first? Of all places, why go straight into the commode? Go into
because
the
it's
tank.
so good.
Because it's Adam, and he is all emotion, no logic. Like, just let's go, let's do this, let's find the key. Oh, oops.
Well, you think his emotions would have put on a better performance when he was pretending to die?
I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole film. What a great sequence that is.
It just falling. I was cheering when he got electrocuted because it enraged me so much, because I'm sitting there like, you couldn't just pretend to choke and die. You had to give like some Tom and Jerry-esque acting. I'm surprised he didn't hold up like flowers while he's falling down to fully get the effect.
Little X's on his eyes.
Yes.
No, I love Gordon's face too, because Gordon is filled with such disdain in that moment.
Yes.
He's just like, what is wrong with you? What have you done? Like, that's the moment Gordon decides to kill him, I'm pretty sure. So, what was your second talking point you wanted to hit, William?
So the other thing that I was kind of thinking was, and I think this was my original pitch to you about like the social commentary of this movie, is just like trying to wrap our heads around Jigsaw's mentality.
Mm-hmm.
This like messiah complex that he has of the way I'm living my life is so right, and the way you are living your life is so wrong, that I'm going to put you in this trap where you're either going to die or you're going to adopt my mentality. And you're going to appreciate life more of the way that, I don't know, it kind of like the way that he does right now, because like cancer, dying, all that stuff. But just trying to understand that and trying to just process that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't dive so much into it in this movie. Like it introduces the concept, but over the course of the series, they just go deeper and deeper and deeper into like that hugely morally gray, and that's the wrong way to pitch this. This just bad moral like approach to this whole issue.
I think it's crazy how socially relevant that is.
Right.
The whole approach of, I'm doing this correctly and you're not. Even if you slightly agree with me, you're not going far enough.
Right.
and the way that he literally recruits people. I mean, all of that is very socially relevant. And I noticed this time something I had never noticed in all the years I've watched this. When Amanda succeeds and she's leaving, there's a huge message sprawled on the wall from Jigsaw. And it basically is recruiting her. I don't remember the exact words. It's not like join me and we'll do this, but it's like, if you hand your life over to me, you'll have a life worth living.
Right.
And
be my disciple, circle yes or no.
Yeah, exactly. I can't help but see that, like, I'm not even talking a certain political group. Like, everywhere I look, I see, if you're not like me, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, tribalism.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that you point out, which is great. It's not tribalism as far as, we already align as far as our beliefs, and let's band together. This is, as William said, and as you said, this is, now you've been exposed to this by a guy who is preaching whatever his gospel is, and you have to make the choice to join. And then you become, for lack of a better term, you become one of those true believers that, this is the way that you're supposed to, appreciate life, or I need to scare the shit out of, whoever, so they can now appreciate it. Because, William, you bring up a good point, because I still don't get the morality that he's arguing. And, maybe that's the whole greatness of Jigsaw, is you understand after you watch this film, and the second one and third one especially, you understand that this guy was dying of cancer, and he was seeing other people take their lives for granted. It comes off almost like the old man yelling at the cloud. Just this whole idea of like, I don't like what you're doing. So, but life is about fucking up. It's about making your own choices. So, I mean, you could almost argue, or you could argue, Jigsaw's the one who's living his life wrong. I mean, he should just look at it as like, oh, I've got X amount of months to live. Fuck it. I'm going to go to Disneyland. I'm going to travel. I'm going to try and do whatever I can to enjoy my life, as opposed to, hey, all the rest of you guys, you're doing it wrong. You're cheating on your wife. You're a drug addict. You set fires or whatever. You did all these other things. You guys are all doing the wrong thing. And it almost becomes a moment where he's equating people who are doing viciously bad stuff with people who are just doing simple shit like, I don't know, I just happen to be the kid of the cop who's hunting you down, or I was a drug addict, or I was cheating on my wife, or the guy who sets the fires and gets people killed. And it seems weird, but it doesn't seem weird to him or anybody who becomes a disciple. It's kind of like, this makes sense to us. These are people who are fucking up. We're going to give them a chance to redeem themselves, or a chance to fix themselves, because I'm not going to do it for them. I'm going to set the trap. I'm going to put them in the situation, but they have to willingly do it themselves, whether that's willingly figure out how to get it out of this problem, or when they willingly decide to join, this organization, this group, this cult, I guess.
And I think that the fact that on the surface, his whole mentality seems to make sense, and then you think about it and it starts to kind of fall apart. I think that's a lot of what the future film started to talk about, where all of his disciples try to latch onto this mentality that he had, and all of them fail.
Right.
All of them have this distorted perception of what he was trying to do, and they fuck it up in their own ways. But like Amanda and Hoffman and whoever the guy was in the Jigsaw movie, all of them, nobody hits the mark because it's so broken and just backwards.
Well, and in Saw 2, Kramer goes out of his way to say that if you understand humans, you can foresee the choices they'll make. And that is completely wrong throughout the entire series.
Yes.
And while it's kind of true, it's more like if you understand the stupidest decision that someone can make, it'll pay off 8 out of 10 times. That's a lot closer to what Jigsaw really did.
Oh, 100%.
But I look back and I'm like it doesn't work in Saw 1 because we don't know the choices that either of them will make. Like, you gave both of them saws, even though you gave Adam a key. So you either expected him to use the key or you expected him to use the saw. Like, which one is it? So right there, it's wrong. Throughout the rest of the series, like, his own apprentices don't make the choices that he thinks they'll make. So none of that adds up to me. But it's a really easy way to explain why traps do work when they shouldn't. There's a couple that like I look at the razor wire and it says that it'll kill him if he doesn't move. How does that work? I don't understand what will kill him if he doesn't go. Like, is it going to pull in on itself like the logo for Twisted Pictures does, which is based on that trap, which is why I said it. But there's some things I need more context for to fully grasp this, because I don't feel like he understood how it would work. I don't know. But my real point with that is even Adam. Like, Adam doesn't do everything we expect him to do. And Gordon kind of does, but kind of doesn't. Like, Gordon just had to shoot him. So sawing off your leg isn't the answer. I don't know. It's all fucking weird to me. And the more I think about it, the more mad I'm getting.
But what if shooting him is the wrong choice?
Well, you're supposed to let your wife and kid die?
No. What I'm saying is, because there's all that wordplay and everything that's there, right? What if shooting him isn't the right choice? What if it's, I don't know, maybe convincing him to, because who's to say the round was live, right? As far as when you first get this inclination that he, when you first see that he has the bullet and everything, right? What if you don't kill him? You shoot him, but he makes it, or he doesn't die before 6 o'clock.
Well, I mean, they do shoot him, and he doesn't. Well, he still lives.
No. That's what I'm saying.
Like you were trying to shoot him.
Yeah,
you shoot him in the head, and he lives.
Yeah, I intended to kill him. He lives. Does my intention now give me points to go forward, or am I going to get more points with Jigsaw by saying, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to take a life. One life isn't worth another one. And he comes in and says, oh, you've very well played. Some shit like that. I don't know.
And that might help explain why Jigsaw's in the middle of the floor for all of this too. Like monitoring those choices that they're making and like seeing if like every time they go off of his like expected beaten path, he shocks them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's something to that where like if he like put the gun down and said, I'm not going through with this, like Jigsaw was in there to hear that and be like, okay, you got it. Good job. Way to go, buddy.
Because now you value life.
Kind of half baked, but yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I kind of like that. That would give everybody an out. Like that saves Gordon's family. It saves. Yeah. I don't know.
But again, I mean, this is, 16 years later where we're talking about what the possibilities are, where there, again, there's a lot of stuff that isn't included in the film, but you get a little bit of backstory to figure out what's going on and the fact that this guy's been doing this, but he isn't actually killing anybody. He's getting them to kill themselves, whatever, right? But the one thing, or not the one thing, but one of the other things that this made me think about, along with a few others, is do you just get to get redeemed if you survive the traps? Or is there some type of redemption that goes along with, like with the scenario we posited here of you don't make the choice he wants you to make? Because maybe Jigsaw wants you to do the bad thing or whatever it is, so that he can prove something out of the game. But, who gets redeemed? I mean, how do you decide, and not just Jigsaw, but I mean, how do you decide who is going to be worthy of playing these games? Or who's worthy of being put in those positions? Because just like, Adam is just the photographer. That's all he's supposed to be there for, is take those pictures. And he gets captured, and, now he's supposed to be, I guess, the target of Dr. Gordon to potentially kill, or at least potentially rationalize some other type of ending for him.
Yeah, it's weird. And I know that we're overthinking this. That's what we do. But even like in later ones when Kramer's like, I'm not a murderer. I despise murderers. Oh, okay. Who set up the rifle that took that detective's head off? And who popped out a fucking blade from his wrist and slammed it through Tap's throat? Like, who was that? Yeah, you didn't kill Tap, but I'm pretty sure you meant to.
There are a lot of murderers who say that, though, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a lot of people in history, whether they're serial killers or just mass murderers, that have made that same argument of, I'm not a murderer. And maybe he's making the argument that I didn't put them into those situations. Like William was saying, that whole idea of this Messiah complex or God complex of, I'm not the one who put them in this position. They did all this fucked up shit to eventually, cross paths with me. And in my brain, I'm doing the right thing. So I'm not killing them. I'm freeing them. So I could see how he makes it. Yeah, I could see how he makes that argument, because I've seen enough true crime and documentaries and stuff on a lot of these murderers that are there that have made this argument like, no, it's not. And not the whole thing of I'm innocent. It's no, I'm not a murderer. I was surviving. I'm not a murderer. This person did X, Y, and Z. And even, I forgot the guy who was on the subway in New York, but it was a huge thing. He killed a few people, and he claimed, because, he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't intending to do anything. And it was the whole idea of he was just defending himself or standing up for himself in the subway. And even as his attorneys were like, just shut the fuck up. Don't say anything to the news. Don't say anything. He then started doing interviews. He's like, yeah, I pointed the gun at this guy, and I pointed the gun at this guy. and I shot this one, and I shot this one. And then you had people who were just hailing this guy as a hero because, he shot a bunch of people on the subway that he claimed were trying to rob him or hustle him or do something. But people were saying like, no, he's not a killer. He's not a murderer. He's standing up for himself.
People can justify anything.
Yeah. Oh, they most definitely can.
What do you guys think about Diana? Do you think that she knew Lawrence was cheating on her? Like, she says he's not. Does she know where he's going? Because she never seems angry about it. Like, I don't feel like Zepp sat her down and was like, just so you know, Dr. Gordon's been fucking around on you. Also, I love Dr. Gordon, so that would be a great addition. But do you guys think that she knows?
I think there's an inclination, but I don't know about completely knowing.
Yeah, she is just so cold towards him in all the scenes that they have together. I don't know if she knows exactly what he's doing, but it seems like she knows he's up to something in her mind. And I don't know if what he's up to really matters to her. Just the fact that he's up to something bad and she's kind of like done with him.
I think it's really interesting that they're so cold to each other, because as a writer, I would immediately think, oh, I have to make these two care about each other so that you care about them.
Right.
And these two do not seem to like each other at all. They're just there. And I still totally care about both. And I think it's really weird that they put the same picture in multiple frames throughout their house. But maybe that's the only time they were happy.
I think that lack of emotional connection comes through in the daughter, though, because as cold as the wife is towards him, the little girl in the movie kills her scenes.
Oh,
like her terror and her, like when Zepp is holding the phone up to her, like that's the one part of this entire movie that my wife has to walk out of the room for. Like she will not watch the scene where the little girl is screaming for her dad to come save her. It is just too much. And like at that point, him not caring about his wife or his wife not caring about him, like it doesn't matter anymore. Like, cause she just does such a good job with that scene.
You know what? I'm glad you bring that up because that's also, I mean, watching it as a dad, because when I watched it when I didn't have a child, I don't get that same type of response, or at least that same type of, I guess that I don't have that same sentiment as I would have now, because my daughter, strangely enough, we've had these discussions. But my daughter knows, like, if there's ever a moment she doesn't feel safe or somebody's, touches her, even just like put their hand on her shoulder or whatever, she knows not to be nice. I'm told her, like, if somebody is, I don't care if it is your grandmother, if they have their hands on you, they touch you, whatever, and you don't want them to touch you or you don't want to kiss or anything like that, you have every right to tell them no. And I will tell them they can have their hurt feelings if they want, but I will tell them, like, I'm not raising my kid to have that type of thing, right? So when I'm watching this time and this girl is pleading, the dad part of me comes out, which wasn't the part of me, 16 years ago when this movie came out. And I immediately thought of, like, somebody's hurting my child and I can't do anything about it. So the same way, that pain is coming through her voice of, like, this is what's happening to me, Dad, blah, blah, blah. Come help me. Come save me. And you're just thinking, like, fuck, what would it feel like if I was in that situation? My child knows how to handle herself if she's in a situation where I'm around. But what about when I'm not? And this is the only connection she has is over that cell phone. And the fear, the trauma is all coming through that very short conversation that they have. And I'll be honest, maybe at that point I would cut my foot off like Dr. Gordon did, especially my right, because that's I had surgery on that foot and, I wouldn't really miss too much. I could get a nice little stump or get a nice pirate peg leg. But I think watching that as an adult with a child, my perspective is different. When I was questioning, like, I'm not cutting my fucking foot off. But now you've got that connection with somebody else. if it had been my wife and my daughter, or it was my wife or my daughter, it's going to be a different type of reaction on my part. But just to hear the child pleading at that moment, her pleading is going to be more important to me, or at least more impactful than my wife pleading if they're together. And just like Dr. Gordon has that reaction, he's like, motherfucker, I will kill you. If you touch them, I'll do this. That hit home with me, where I'm like, motherfucker, I wish somebody would try to do something. I swear to God, I'll burn this motherfucker down. So I think my child has heard that enough times to where she's kind of like, yeah, we get it. You're going to burn this down. We get it, Dad. I was like, you don't understand. What about you, James?
Oh, I'm a very selfish person, so I'm going to keep all my limbs. And no, I really don't know. Ever since I had kids, my sympathy and empathy have like not even just like bloomed, they've become like a fucking forest, and I can't imagine the lengths that I would go to in the position that he's in. But then there's also the part of me that would just be sitting in the corner crying, so maybe I wouldn't be able to. I don't know. But yeah, hard to say.
I don't know if I would ever be able to cut my own foot off, but I know that if I was going to cut my foot off, like, that's the one thing that would push me there.
Yeah, definitely.
Could you imagine I guess the way you'd be able to continuously fuck with any relatives for the rest of your life. These things like, what are you willing to do for your kids? And then you walk in, what am I willing to do? Motherfucker, I cut off my foot. It's like, you know what? I went to school and I got an extra job and I had worked so much, blah, blah, blah. Then I paid and I got her this nice dress for Christmas. I would do anything for my daughter. And then I would just burst through a door. Anything for your daughter. Let me tell you about the time I was trapped in this fucked up room. It would just become comical at a certain point where I would just, any person that would come forward and say, like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to get a vaccine for my child. I'm willing to do things for them, but I don't know. Look here, motherfucker. When I was in that bathroom and I heard my child screaming, I cut my fucking foot off. So, goddamn it, you're getting a vaccine for your kid. But
so, follow-up question: would you bring the foot with you?
Yes, I would have it wrong.
Yeah.
Look, with modern science, you could probably cut it off and probably get it reattached. It might not be fully functional, but you might be able to get it reattached.
If you can't, it'd be a great talking point at your house. Oh yeah, that's my foot. When you're talking about motherfucker, I cut my foot off. All I could picture was Bob Saget in Half Baked.
Oh my God, I've seen him do it.
I don't want to spoil that part for anyone that hasn't seen it. So, but
I just love the follow up to that one. I've seen him do it.
Oh man. So, right. One of the funniest things in this film to me, it cracks me up every time I see it, is when they're trying to decide. It's Tap and his partner. What's his name? Sing. And they're trying to like decide where this took place. And they find this little gang symbol like on the corner of the screen. And then they're like, oh, remember that gang? Their territory was like 4 blocks. I don't know why. That makes me laugh every time. I'm like, it was just blocks. Like, I want to know more about this gang. Oh, these are our 4 blocks. And like, are they in a row? Is it like an L on Tetris? Is it like, I don't know. It's like, which 4 blocks are they? Are they together? I don't know. I want to know more about this gang and why they only have 4 blocks of territory.
And if they've only got 4 blocks, how are they not noticing this going on?
Right?
Is the gang involved in this somehow? Is this Jigsaw's gang?
Jigsaw's Red Triangle gang. Yeah.
They saw the doll on a tricycle and like, yeah, that's even too crazy for us. We don't need all 4 blocks. You can have this one, sir.
That's the plot of Spiral. We figured it out.
Oh, man. It's a 9-block radius, but it just goes around in a spiral. We've grown. Anyway. But yeah, I don't know. That makes me laugh every time. But then I'm also like, I love how like this totally fits like the weirdness of the movie. Like you're just like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Awesome.
Well, and I was just watching the documentary on the Night Stalker, and my wife got mad at me because I said, "Oh yeah, this is the one about Richard Ramirez." She's like, "Who?" I was like, "The Night Stalker." We're 2 episodes in. I didn't know his fucking name, and I looked at her. I was like, "It's Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. He's famous. It's like Ted Bundy." And so she was mad at me for like 30 minutes because I said his name. But when I was watching the documentary, or when watching the docuseries, the same types of things came up. So, it's comical on one end within the film, but you saw how the police officers and detectives in that film, in the docuseries, were pointing to stuff like what you see in Saw, where they were looking at pictures from crime scenes. They were looking at, pieces of evidence that they put together and shoes and the type of ammunition. And they were trying to pull anything in there. So even looking at the graffiti in this film, that's something I could have easily seen them doing in this film, or at least in reality, and saying like, oh well, if that's the graffiti that's in this abandoned warehouse, or this apartment block across the street or whatever, it's got to be in this area. And I from the 5-part series, or 6, or however long it is, you see how they start building and start trying to figure out what the pattern is for this guy who's going around killing people, and raping and molesting, because he was doing, all types of horrible acts. But, to me, I mean, I could see that working, but I think it would be kind of funny determining exactly where that territory is and how Jigsaw was able to pull all this stuff off under their noses. Because, is this one of these neighborhoods where everybody just leaves each other alone? Or is this, something, or even with the gang, is it like just a tagging gang? They just don't do any shit except for graffiti.
Well, they must be good at it to have territory.
Well, taggers are serious about their territory,
I know.
At least from what I remember in the 90s. I don't know how the hell it is anymore, but I know if you spray painted over their shit, they would be fighting with you. But I don't know. I never did any of that stuff. I was a square, much like their territory. So
glad we solved that.
Okay, I got a question for both of you, and I guess it's going to be a weird question, but again,
all right, it's going to William first. Go.
I'm ready.
All right, this is not one of these things where you're trying to incriminate anybody, but based off of the way that Adam knows who the doctor is, and the doctor, and then Zepp knows who the doctor is, right? So yeah. There's always a connection, or at least seemingly a connection, between the people that are here. My question is, who could you imagine in your life pulling this off, as far as like, not necessarily being Jigsaw, but Jigsaw gets to them and it's like, I need you to do this, and whatever you do unknowingly is connected to this person. Like, who do you think? Because Jigsaw's really weird as far as the rules of what's going to determine whether or not somebody's worthy of being tested, but who do you think would possibly be used to get at you?
Who would be used to get at me? Oh my God.
Why would we admit that on here? Then people will know.
Right.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. If somebody's looking for you, they're going to find somebody.
My answer is Dawn. Dawn is the only person.
Because I was going to say you.
I really don't know. It's crazy.
Like an accomplice with Jigsaw? Like kind of like an Amanda router?
Not necessarily. More like Zeb, where it's, I have to do this because something's going to happen to me. I know how to get to you. I went to get your kid and your wife.
I get it now. Oh gosh. Yeah, that's it.
But now I'm paranoid of everyone in my life. Thanks a lot. Also, is this pre-COVID? Because I don't interact with anybody. So
right.
I was gonna say, yeah, we probably have to do with pre-COVID rules, because I can't remember the last time I had a lengthy conversation with somebody in person.
I would be really easy to trick. Like, you'd just be like, "Hey, we want you to be a guest at this convention. and we're flying you in and we'll pick you up. And I'd be like, sweet. And I'd be in chains.
Well, that was my next question.
Like that.
What's going to be your trap?
My trap.
Yeah,
my trap 100% would be like people just feeding me hot wings until I explode, because I would sign right up for it like a fucking moron. So it'd be the easiest thing.
Okay,
I figured mine out. So my day job, I'm a teacher and I'm a cross country and like a distance running coach. So the way to me would be through like one of my high school cross country girls that was miffed at me for the workout that I just put them through.
That's awesome.
I'm telling you, as a former high school teacher and as a former coach, 100%. It'd probably be the whole team or a whole crew that would be after you.
Right. And it wouldn't be a hard sell either. Like Jigsaw would just show up at practice one day like, hey, you mad at him? Yup. Okay, let's go.
Man, if it just has to be people mad at me, it's
right, exactly.
If it's just people mad at me, like half of Twitter and like most of my family, and yeah, that's about it right there. Any of them would sell me out.
I just realized, and this is a random thing, and I hate to insult Saul like this, but I might not be the only one who's thought of this, so I don't want to claim it as my idea. But while we were just talking, I just realized that Speed was Saw before Saw.
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
Do you know what else was Saw before Saw?
I know. I'm trying to lead you to that. And not as well thought out, but and not as well, presented by any means. But the whole, you're getting on a bus and he's figured out who he wants, to be there. And you got to play by his rules if you want to make it. But even with that, there's no guarantee that you're going to make it, because the other question I had was, how can you survive if so much of the odds are stacked up against you? And what if Jigsaw doesn't want you to survive? He just wants to play the game, but he doesn't want you to survive. Like Adam. Like Adam's not meant to survive.
Maybe he doesn't think Adam's life. Yeah, that's true. I was going to say maybe he doesn't think Adam's worth saving, but I guess everyone else kind of fits that too. So maybe in Saw 1, he was more of a, like, you have to be of a certain social status and you have to be a white guy. And no, anyway. He really does embody the thing that Tap says, where Tap says the sewers run through this neighborhood too.
Mm-hmm.
But what has Gordon really done? Like Gordon just didn't get to know him as a person. Is that Gordon's fault, or is that the medical industry? Like, he probably has a quote patients he has to see, and it's not like doctors come and get to know you. I've been in the hospital. Doctors stop by. Nurses get to know you.
Yeah, the nurses are the ones who you better get on the right side of.
And even Zepp. Apparently Zepp didn't get to know him very well, because otherwise he wouldn't put him through a fucking test. He wouldn't be like, hey, Zepp, you were always great to me. You didn't tell anybody when I left my fucking drawings out in the open of a fucking reverse bear trap while everybody's in here talking. Why is that in the movie? That's so fucking weird. And but it's not that Zepp did any better. So I don't understand what John Kramer was expecting from this, and what Gordon did to deserve this, and what Zepp did to deserve this. I feel like other people were really shitty human beings when he put them through stuff, and this is like, oh, you didn't talk to me enough.
And I think that's what we talked about earlier with this whole idea of he has this weird way of rationalizing who is going to be playing the game and who's not. But I mean, it's one of those things that it's very basic in the first one, but then it progresses to killers and just filthy human beings, just violent or manipulative people, as opposed to my job has become so mundane. I sometimes refer to my patients as if they're not here, or I refer to my patients in some language that that dehumanizes them, not necessarily, making them animalistic, but making them seem as though they don't exist. And, I could understand Jigsaw's, I guess, thoughts about maybe Dr. Gordon needs to think about his bedside manner. But even then, it doesn't fit as you start to progress through the series, as far as that something that low compared to like what Amanda has to go through, because she was an addict. So this is a way to save her, get her to save herself.
Look at Hoffman. Hoffman deserved to be tested.
Mm-hmm.
Hoffman, he makes a trap to kill somebody and makes it look like Jigsaw did it. Like, that's a guy that deserves to be tested.
I think that's part of the flaw with Kramer, though, is he thinks that he's this impartial judge just looking at everybody else and valuing their worth or their not worth to society. And then we've got Gordon here, who hasn't really done anything wrong other than just being like a dismissive doctor. And Kramer throws him in this trap. And I always felt like it was just a personal thing. Like Jigsaw's trying to shroud it in this whole, no, you deserved this. But really, he's mad at the doctor that gave him a death sentence. Like, that's right. I don't know if it really runs any deeper than that. Yeah. Even if he's going to play it off like it is.
I don't know. And I know we're overthinking it and that nobody planned on Saw 2 when Saw came out or, anything else. But that's why I say that you can't view these individually, because I feel like once you've been through the others, you can never be blind to them again. You can never separate yourself from that.
Right.
And he does circle it back to the healthcare industry in like 6 or 7 or whichever one.
6, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not completely removed, I guess. And I'm trying to remember what everybody was in there for in 6.
Most of them were insurance people that choose who lives and dies and things like that.
So similar to Gordon then, I guess.
Yeah, and it's also like there's like one guy who's like a janitor and then somebody else and he's like, oh, this one's got these diseases and he's going to die anyway. Is his life worth less? That kind of thing. It's very, very preachy. It's got some cool death scenes, though.
Yeah. All right. Here's another question, then. If you were Jigsaw, not necessarily who, but what type of person? What type of person? I mean, this is going to help us avoid any incriminating stuff. But what kind of person would be the one where you say, like, you need to learn some type of lesson? If you die, you die. If you live, you'll have a new viewpoint of the world.
That's easy. People who leave rude comments on our podcast. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But what would be your trap to get them to, I guess, see something new or different?
I don't know that I'm creative that way. Like, I don't know that I could do that. Like, I would just kill people. Like, I don't think I'd give them a test. Like, that mad, I would just kill them.
Yeah, I'm struggling over here. I know, like, the type of person would be like child abusers. Like that. Okay. That's my line. And we kind of got into that already earlier. But as far as a trap that would make them come face to face with that, like, I'm struggling there. Maybe something to see, like something to make them come face to face with, like, all the trauma that they're going to cause that child in the future, like the consequences that goes down that road. But I don't know what that would look like, especially with Jigsaw's limitations, with like all of his traps are these weird rustic, like dilapidated things you could build at Home Depot in an hour. Like, I
not
have no
that
idea
we've
how that
tried. What about you, Don? Do you have traps in mind?
Well, these would be the things. I would make anybody who thinks that, the current minimum wage is good and okay, or thinking that people, especially Americans, shouldn't have gotten, I guess, some type of assistance through the entire pandemic to make them work in those same jobs that everybody else has been having to do as far as food delivery, grocery stores, whatever, and live that way for, I don't know, what are we up to now? 8-9 months? Let's just make it a whole year. You got to make it a whole year. You got to survive out of that for a whole year. None of this, what's that show? Secret Boss, Undercover Boss, where like, oh, I'm going to show up and pretend I'm a worker just like the rest of you. No, you got to do this shit for a whole year. You got to deal with, being a teacher during a pandemic, having parents yelling at you about shit that you have nothing to do with, just whatever their idea of people who don't deserve better pay or better conditions, you now have to switch places with them. I don't think they'd make it a whole year.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
No.
Definitely.
No.
So basically, you would take the plot of Schitt's Creek and then like amplify it. Like you'd confine them, and it's the beginning of the show, like 2 minutes in, so I think it'll be all right.
I'm joking. I saw them getting everything repoed. I was like, I'll go back to watching The Office.
Anyway, so yeah, outside of that, I don't know. Like, I agree with both of you. I work at a nonprofit that helps kids who have experienced extreme trauma. So pretty much anybody that's ever been involved in commercial sexual exploitation of children, anybody that's abused children in any way, and just like there's that biker gang that goes around and beats up dudes who beat women. Like I'd like to employ them and that kind of stuff. But overall, I wouldn't like make a trap. I wouldn't like give people an out. Like in that kind of world, I really believe the earth is better without those people. So fuck them.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
That said, I can barely like kill a scorpion in my house. I live in Arizona. It's not unusual. But so that I probably wouldn't do it. Probably.
James, I'm not gassing you up to get in the murder business, but I will just say this.
That's a first.
Knowing what those kids have gone through, and if you've had firsthand contact with somebody that had done that to a kid that you, especially if it was a child that you knew, I have full confidence that that person would not be missed.
I have full confidence that I would have a really good alibi.
Nudge. I'm sorry, dude. You were with me. We were watching a movie.
But yeah, so let's get out of this self-incriminating nonsense.
It's not self-incriminating unless we actually do it. And hypotheticals do not count.
And
that's what my lawyer told
stop
me.
Listening now.
Does your lawyer have like hair dye running down his face? Because I feel like that's not the most quality law advice. Anyway,
no, you and I both know it. Good lawyers, real lawyers, not the ones who get the Four Seasons landscaping and whatever mixed up with the Four Seasons hotel.
One day we'll stop talking about him.
Never.
So going back, just Zepp's whole time with the family. William, you kind of mentioned how the young girl, I think her name's Mackenzie Vega in real life, how great her performance is here. That part where he has the stethoscope, I've never seen that in any other horror film. Mm-hmm. And I think that is such a cool addition. And also, I want to know why he does it. He doesn't have to like report on her heart rate to anybody. Like, what a strange thing to do. Like, is he getting off on the fear? Is there a reason for this? Or is it just this cool thing for the audience? I don't know, but it's really fucking effective. And I would like to know more about what he was doing. Do either of you have theories on that?
Oh, God, I didn't think about it that much. William?
Yeah, I have a really hard time separating what he's doing in character versus what his actor's doing, because I'm always going to think of him as Ben Linus from Lost. And anytime he's on screen, like, okay, shady stuff is going down. There is some mystery to solve here with polar bears and numbers in a bunker, and I don't understand what he's doing, but there's a reason for it. Like immediate conspiracy theories whenever he shows up. So I don't know. He does a great job of just being unnerving when he's on screen.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that was part of the ploy or if that was, I don't know.
I think it's great that you brought up Lost, because there's always been this theory that Lost kind of influenced the rest of Saw, because Lost really showed that people will invest in mystery and in an ongoing story. And the writers and producers and directors of the Saw series, while none of them were involved in every single one, built this weird fucking mystery ongoing thing when they had no reason to do so. You cannot convince me that the producers in the studios were like, make these movies work together somehow. Fuck that. They were like, make this movie work, make it make money. They don't care about the ongoing. They don't care if you watch all 7. They want who's going to watch this one. And I have no idea why the writers and directors thought this was a great idea. Fucking works. Like, you had people like me living on these forums, and you had people like me who were there at the midnight showing and then went back to see it again to see what the fuck they missed the first time, because I couldn't read spoilers, Don, and you know how much that annoys me. And so I had to see it multiple times, but I wanted to see it multiple times, and this mystery drove me to keep seeing it and keep going to every single one. And I don't know that Lost really had that big of an influence on it, but I like that theory because Lost did come out at almost the same time. And so if the powers that be were watching what Lost was doing to America at the time, and then started pushing Saw in that direction, it makes a lot of sense to me. But who knows? Could just be one guy who's like, I don't know, we put this scene in the movie, we forgot to fucking edit it out, now we gotta make it make sense. People online are bitching about how could he be laying there this long, so now I'm gonna write in a muscle relaxer, you know? Who knows? It's hard to say, but
I think that's one of the core parts of this movie's DNA, though, is just like everybody knows these movies for 2 things: the twists at the end and the like buckets of blood. And this first movie didn't even have the buckets of blood. Like, it just lived on that suspense that it was building up and that mystery and that twist at the end. And like after they did it again in the second one, it was like, okay, every Saw movie's got to have that twist or it's going to be a disappointment.
Well, I mean, it's called Twisted Pictures. You better.
Right.
Plus, we want to hear the song. Like, to this day, if Hello Zepp starts, I'm automatically in a good mood. Like, I'm like, yes! It's energizing to me. I don't know. It's so ingrained in me. And my buddy Nicky James, he he redid the song himself. He's a musician, and he dropped it on his YouTube and stuff, and we're actually going to play it at the end of this episode. But yeah, I love how much other people love it as well. Like, we're talking 15 fucking years, or 16, 17 now, 17 years ago, and this song is still like hyping us up, and I don't know. It's so well done.
Another thing is, you know, with the whole Billy the Doll thing, is I like how that adds to the mystery of who Jigsaw is, or what Jigsaw is, or who Jigsaw are, you know, as far as, you know, maybe it's not just one person. How could one person do all this shit? But just the creep factor of that doll not just showing up on screen, because at first you're thinking like, oh, somebody wearing a mask. But then you see the fucking doll on a tricycle riding forward. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is... Okay, is the doll going to jump off and kill somebody or something? Because we've all been conditioned, like, when there's a doll in a horror movie, something fucked up is going to happen. Like, really bad is going to go down. But I loved how you didn't know who Jigsaw was, and they throw away Kramer so quickly at the beginning when Dr. Gordon is doing his rounds and detectives Tapp and Singh want to talk to him. You know, you get this quick moment where he's talking about a patient with the interns or the residents, and that's it. You know, then you see Zepp, who just seems like he's a weirdo. He's like, no, this guy's really brilliant. He's a great guy. And you kind of wonder, like, okay, that's kind of weird that he has an attachment to some random patient. But, you know, he works in the hospital. I'm sure, you know, the guy doesn't have any family, and he's talking to the nurses, talking to the custodians, whoever. And they formed a bond, because that stuff happens. I mean, we had there was a hurricane, I think last year or the year before, and the people that worked in this retirement home all left except for like 2 of the cooks or 2 of the custodians, and all the elderly people were left behind. But it was just these 2 men that stayed behind with them, and their rationale, at least the reasoning was, when they were interviewed by the news, was like, we couldn't leave them. Like, we know these people. We talk to them every day. Why should I leave Miss Thompson or Mr. Smith or whoever by themselves? And, I thought about that when I was watching this, because that was kind of the same tone that Zepp kind of pushed, which was, this is a guy. And also to juxtapose how flippant or how dismissive Dr. Gordon is about this patient, where he's talking about him like he's a thing and not a person. Whereas Zepp comes in, he talks about him as a person as opposed to a thing or just, a liability or a problem. So you start questioning, like, who the fuck is Jigsaw? And at a certain point you think, oh, well, it's got to be Zepp, because, I saw the side of his face when he was looking at the TV that was, linked to the cameras. Oh, he's holding them hostage. Oh, it's got to be him. So this whole time you're trying to figure out who it is. And then if this is your first viewing and no spoilers or anything, you realize, holy shit, he's been in front of us the entire time, hiding in plain sight. So I love how all those elements, as far as the doll, the disciples or acolytes or whatever, that are distracting us from understanding who Jigsaw is, what Jigsaw is, and what the motivation is. And you really get that at the end of this film and then the subsequent film. So I mean, I thought it was great. And, like you said, when the doll is a great touch, because you can't look at the doll, even if you haven't seen the film, you can't look at the doll and, one, either not get creeped out, or two, not think about the movie. It's just as iconic as Jason Voorhees' hockey mask, Freddy's glove, or Freddy's sweater for that matter. Michael Myers' mask, the chainsaws, any of these other Chucky the doll. I mean, there's so many things in horror that this I would equate to as, you see it, you automatically know what it's from. So it's great.
I think it's going to become very important soon. And this goes back to my foruming days, but the next movie is called Spiral, and the spirals are literally on Billy's face. Yep. And I feel like it's the insignia that's bringing us the next group. I don't think it's one guy. I think it's like a religion. I don't know, but like it makes so much sense to me that they would worship this symbol, the symbol of Jigsaw, the symbol of John Kramer. And I love that it's on Billy, because they can use Billy in further movies. He doesn't have to be with John. He doesn't have to be with Hoffman or anybody else. And I think that's it was a cool way to keep his face off the screen. And now it's a cool way to keep his legacy alive going forward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
William, you were telling us off air about the construction of Billy. Would you like to talk about that?
Oh, yes. So, like I said, I learned about this movie in the broadcasting class. I was having to do all this research about how they made it and everything else. Apparently James Wan just made Billy in his garage, like as part of the pitch for the movie, I think. Or at least very early on in the creation of it. He just made this doll and like showed it to Lee Wanell one day, and they just ran with it. And that's so insane to me that he could be so multi-talented, that not only can you make this super low budget, one of the highest grossing horror films of all time movies, and you can make Seven Fast, Seven Furious. You can also like dabble in puppetry. Like what can't James Wan do right now?
All right. Let me ask you this. Don and I have some theories about what Spiral will be, but I don't want to get into them because I don't want to ruin it for anybody on the off chance I get it right. Do you have anything that you're really looking forward to with Spiral versus what we got with Saw 3D?
My one big hope I guess my two big hopes with the movie are, number one, that they go back to like a very character-based tension suspense kind of a movie again, instead of just throwing buckets of blood at the screen.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of bring it back to its roots like it was with Saw 1. And then number two, with the twist at the end, I I really don't want the twist to revolve around who Saw is again. Because we've had that so many times. We had it in Saw 1, then we had it with Amanda, like the reveal that Amanda was working with them, and then with Hoffman, and then in Jigsaw, like they were pitching like, this is going to be revitalizing the Saw franchise, and we've got this new idea that we're working with. And then it was the same thing that they've done over and over again. Like, okay, Jigsaw had some apprentice that we didn't know about, and the apprentice did all this. Like, I don't know how they get away from that, especially with the fact that all of Saw's apprentices are supposedly dead right now. I don't know how they move away from that style of a twist, but I want something different.
And I certainly hope you get that, because so much of the Saw franchise's joy comes from being caught off guard. And we know the formula's way too well. We need something else, right? Speaking of formulaic, this is the part where I say, William, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you online, man?
You can find me on Twitter almost every day, and my books are on Amazon, that unholy entity.
Well, awesome. Following this is my friend Nikki James's version of Hello Zep, so make sure you stick around and check that out. Until next week, as always, I am James Sabata.
And I am Don Guillory.
And we will see you back here at thenecronama.com.